This is clearly an intelligence agency, and at this point, pretty much proven that it's Mossad. Drop site news has Ehud Barak's emails where they are Epstein and the former prime minister of Israel are conspiring to get America to bomb Syria and to get America to bomb Iran.
In this video, Cenk Uygur explodes about Epstein, and we're diving straight into a segment packed with accusations, intelligence agency implications, and media hypocrisy. The key figures here are Cenk Uygur, Dana Bash, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jeremy Bash, Ehud Barak, and of course, the ever-present ghost hovering over American politics. His name, Jeffrey Epstein. And let's be clear, Cenk is absolutely dominating this exchange. The rest are scrambling to keep up with the implications while Cenk lays out connections like he's dropping classified documents. So let's break this down boldly, call out the bias, point out the double standard, and highlight exactly where the media melts down the second Israel enters the conversation. Let's get at it.
And for someone to think that it's got to be about Israel, then you have to say that both sides are covering for Israel. And I don't think so. I don't think that the Democrats were as in love with Israel.
Definitely.
This morning, Cenk explained Jeffrey Epstein's ties to the Israeli government live on Piers Morgan Uncensored. And we've got more on this developing story. But Cenk, on that conversation specifically, what's your 2 cents here?
I love how he thought it was going to be a gotcha, like, oh, then both sides would have to be working with Israel. Duh. Of course, 90% of Congress gets donations from the Israeli lobby. They happen to coincidentally vote with Israel 100% of the time, but apparently that's news to Officer Tatum. Okay, apparently he wasn't a detective.
Right out of the gate, Cenk frames Epstein as basically a walking intelligence operation, pointing directly at Mossad connections and tying it all to drop site news leaks. He's not tiptoeing. He's going straight for the jugular, saying the evidence is already there. And honestly, he's not wrong. Both parties pretend to be blind when Epstein's ties pointed in a politically inconvenient direction. This is a peak moment. Cenk throws heavily sarcasm at everyone on the whole panel as he calls out selective ignorance. Perfect spot to stop the comments on how political bias blinds even basic patterns recognizable.
Okay, so we're going to show you how Dana Bash is slightly outraged by this, but internally she seemed to be very outraged by the mere suggestion. So let's have that conversation.
Yeah, for one, I'm shocked that there's gambling going on in this establishment, Cenk. But Cenk isn't the only one debating Epstein's ties to Israel. We're about to show you an exchange that Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene had over the weekend with Dana Bash. But keep in mind that Bash's ex-husband, Jeremy Bash, was connected to an Israeli spy who stayed at Epstein's apartment for 3 extended periods of time. More on that later. For now, let's watch Greene and Bash. Take a look.
I do want to ask you about something you posted just yesterday on X. You questioned who and what country is putting so much pressure on Trump to keep the Epstein files hidden. And you included a picture about donations from pro-Israel lobbying group AIPAC. What are you trying to say there?
Well, I think it's the question that many Americans are asking, especially when we saw information recently come out in these emails that the Oversight Committee that I serve on has released. And we saw Jeffrey Epstein with ties to Ehud Barak. We saw him making business deals with them, also business deals that involved the Israeli government, and seems to have led into their intel agencies. And I think the right question is to ask is, was Jeffrey Epstein working for Israel? And I'm proud to say I don't take money from AIPAC. I don't take money from any special group of people. I'm just representing my district and the American people. And so that's what I was referring to.
Next, we have Dana Bash stepping in with her trademark performative outrage, questioning Greene's insinuations while conveniently ignoring that her own ex-husband, Jeremy Bash, was literally arranging access for Israeli officials connected to Epstein. Cenk hits her with a fair criticism. Why pretend this is unthinkable when your own circle has touched the same network? This is where media bias becomes blatant. They frame the question as offensive, but not the facts behind it.
No, that wasn't all. Here is more of their exchange. Take a look.
I just want to be clear. Are you saying Israel is pushing the president of the United States to cover up the Epstein files? And what evidence do you have that that is the case?
I simply just asked out loud, is there a foreign government? And it could be any foreign government, but is a foreign government pushing to keep this covered up? Because people just don't understand the big fight against.
Well, you had AIPAC up there. It was pretty clear which government you were talking about.
That I'm questioning that government in particular and questioning any other foreign government.
Now, we're going to get in a second to Dana Bash's ex-husband, Jeremy Bash. But to be clear, on Dana Bash specifically, she has spent the last 3 years now, or 2 years, demonizing Palestinians, presenting false equivalencies, trying to deflect from what Israel has been doing in Gaza. As a host on CNN, she has repeatedly interjected on behalf of Israeli interests on her own, not saying she's doing it on behalf of them, but you must consider her perspective when she talks about topics like this. Now let's talk about Jeremy Bash. According to Drop Site News, between the years of 2013 and 2016, an Israeli intelligence officer named Yoni Koren lived at Epstein's apartment 3 separate times. He worked directly with Mossad during his career. In the 90s, Koren coordinated with US officials such as Colin Powell. In 2015, Koren helped arrange a meeting between former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and former CIA Director and Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta. That meeting was arranged with the help of Jeremy Bash. By then, Bash had already finished his terms as Chief of Staff for the CIA from 2009 to 2011, and the Department of Defense from 2011 to 2013. He and Dana Bash separated in 2007 after about 10 years of marriage. Bash took care of the arrangements for Barak and his family to get access to secure facilities in the White House and the Pentagon. Bash was by then a private citizen, and he had started his own consulting company, Beacon Global Strategies. But he still enjoyed high-level access to the White House and U.S. defense establishment. That's strange, Cenk. Why is someone who has a consulting company allowed to just freely roam the White House?
Yeah, it's awfully strange. There's a lot of strange activities when it comes to Epstein. Texting Democratic congresspeople in the middle of hearings, telling them what to ask. Being buddy with the former top economic advisor to Obama and Clinton, Larry Summers. Now with this Jeremy Bash guy, he says, oh yeah, do the former Prime Minister of Israel a favor for me. And Jeremy Bash is like, right away, Mr. Epstein. Certainly, Mr. Epstein. And he arranges a tour. What is going on here?
Now the video dives into the deep cut details. Yoni Koren, Mossad ties, Ehud Barak popping by Epstein's place like it was his vacation home, and Jeremy Bash leveraging access as a private citizen. Cenk points out the obvious. Why isn't the media talking about this? Because the second Epstein's connections point at Israel, corporate outlets shut down harder than the Windows 95 machine running out of RAM. This is the moment where their absurdity peaks. Perfect place to highlight how DC insiders treat intelligence access like a casual favor. What a joke.
So like Dana Bash pretends to be outraged there, and I'm sure that she is actually outraged because she thinks it's unthinkable. But then Dana, you tell us, why are all these people in both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party doing massive favors for Jeffrey Epstein? Is it blackmail? Is it just normal campaign contributions? Is it that he's working with a foreign government? I mean, you tell us. The circumstantial evidence is overwhelming, so I'll give that case in a second, okay? But they notice that people like Bash never give an alternate explanation. They're just always huffing and puffing about like, you can't say it's Israel. Like that conversation she had with Marjorie Taylor Greene, I feel like she thought, oh, beautiful, I got her to say it. That's it, her career is over. She said that it might be Israel that's directing an American president. That's it, cancel her, everybody, we're done with her. No, you're not getting it, Dana. Nobody's canceling her. No one cares anymore, okay? You're only canceling people in your own head. It's not working at all anymore. Now, look, we're a fair show. I don't think what Jeremy Bash did should be on Dana Bash. They're two different people. Even if they were still married, it's not on her. And they've been divorced and divorced for a while. I don't care about their personal lives. So Jeremy Bash is doing something wrong with Epstein is a different story. Dana Bash supporting Israel 2,000 times over on air and being outraged at the suggestion that Epstein and Israel might be connected is a different story. Okay, so now on that one, she's like, what evidence might you have? Okay, first of all, we have all the evidence from Dropsite News that shows, yes, Israeli spies lived with Jeffrey Epstein for different stretches at a time, for long stretches at a time. Ehud Barak came over 30 times. Ehud Barak couldn't get meetings with Vladimir Putin. He asked Epstein to do it. This is a former prime minister of Israel. Epstein goes, oh, don't worry, I'll look into it with my sources. And voila, he gets a meeting with Ehud Barak and Putin. He's what literally, you know who can do that? I don't know, is there 5 people, 10 people, 20 people in the world that have that kind of power? That means he's one of the most powerful men on earth. So the idea that he might be connected with a government is absurd. The idea that he is not connected with a government is absurd. And he's in the emails, Ehud Barak's emails, talking about, oh, let's try to get America to bomb Syria. Let's try to get America to bomb Iran. But I'm sure Dana Bash is gonna do a segment on that, right? I'm sure CNN is all over the airwaves talking about that, right? Is the reporting true or false? You know the reporting is true. That's why you're not doing a segment on it. Isn't it weird that they're purposely covering up a massive, fascinating story that solves the mystery of why Epstein was so powerful? And Dana, you can go and call it a trope and do whatever you want. And again, no one cares anymore, right? Oh, we canceled you already. We called it a trope, okay? I don't care what you called it. The Israeli lobby donates to 90% of Congress. Those folks vote with Israel 100% of the time. Prove me wrong. And so if that's true, which it is true, then does that entity, no matter what it is, by the way, there's several different entities that fit that bill. Big pharma, big oil, defense contractors, but yes, the Israeli lobby is one of them. And does the Israeli lobby totally control 90% of Congress? Obviously. No, how dare you say that? Well, completely true. You have been canceled in my mind because I find it to be a trope. Is there a trope about big pharma? Am I not allowed to say that? Am I being anti-pharmacist? I don't care what you think. I care about journalism. And it's obvious that Bash is not doing that. But to be fair, here she gave Marjorie Taylor Greene a forum. Marjorie Taylor Greene made her points and she appears to be completely correct. And Bash, as usual with her skepticism and huffing and puffing, is not correct. And so, by the way, if I'm misrepresenting her, and I've read too much into her past context in this particular clip, I'm very happy to have a civilized conversation with Dana Bash. My guess is she's not happy to have that conversation, because if you have a conversation about Israel, you can't, because everyone in the conversation has already been canceled if they criticize Israel. And I'm sure that she'll be outraged by facts and journalism. Okay, well then you shouldn't call yourself a journalist.
Yeah, so for me, I think this is a risk here when you have, or not a risk, but just a possibility in a scenario that activists, organizers need to consider when somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene with a history of anti-Semitic comments does make a pivot and changes her tune on something like this, right? Anything that involves Israel. It's an easy layup for somebody like Dana Bash or Jake Tapper, whomever, to just, well, what do you mean by that? Insinuating, oh, you're only doing this because you're anti-Semitic. And now we can talk about this topic and say, yeah, no, it's clear there's a link here. But for her, it's an easy target and a distraction. I mean, this is a host who has allowed people to come on her show for years to insinuate that pro-Palestinian protests were anti-Semitic inherently, that the phrase "Free Palestine" is a call for violence against Jews. I mean, the list goes on, and we rolled our eyes, we pulled out our hair for years. But in a situation like this, it's not so much that the message is wrong. She's just not the right messenger for it. But they don't really care about that. If in fact they would rather have somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene on there, so they can just quickly shut it down, insinuate she's only doing it because she's anti-Semitic, and then move on. If they really cared about getting to the core issue here, really drill down into the story, they would invite Ryan Grimm, or they would invite anyone else from Drop Site to come on and talk about it. But they won't do that. They don't really care. If anything, they want to deflect from it. So you can see the bias in how they select guests, topics, and framing. This is a massive story that every major outlet should be chasing down. But because it involves the Israeli government, they're like, no, we're good. We'll have Marjorie Taylor Greene on to look like a lunatic. That's it.
Cenk then unloads on the cancellation theater. Dana Bash acting like merely mentioning Israel's role is career-ending. He calls out CNN's Israel First editorial pipeline, pointing out that every story involving Israel gets screened by their own bureau there. That's not journalism. That's PR with graphics. Meanwhile, the people who actually broke the story, Ryan Grimm and Drop Site News, CNN won't touch them. They'd rather bring Marjorie Taylor Greene on just to dismiss the topic entirely. Jordan joins in pointing out how hosts like Bash have spent years waving off Palestinian suffering while platforming fear-mongering narratives about protesters. But suddenly, when Epstein is involved, now they care about anti-Semitism? Give me a break. That's not moral consistency. That's weaponized identity politics, plain and simple.
Yeah, except she doesn't. She looks perfectly reasonable in that case. So sad day for them. Look, guys, I mean, I said I'd be happy to discuss it with Dana Bash, and she could shred me and have all of her evidence that it's obviously not Israel. They're never gonna have that conversation. But forget that. Jordan's right. Just have Ryan Grimm on. He's a reporter. He broke the story. And by the way, if the story is wrong, then grill Ryan and show that he's a terrible anti-Semite and those are not real facts. But they're never gonna have that conversation because that conversation shows indisputably it was Israel. And the very, very last thing that CNN wants you to find out is that it's Israel. Partly because all their stories, we've talked about this before, any story related to Israel for CNN has to run through their bureau in Israel. Why? What an insane thing. Imagine if they're like, okay, we're gonna report on Russia and what they're doing in Ukraine, but we can't report anything unless the Russians approve it. So we're sending it to our bureau in Moscow and have them approve it before we report it. But for Israel, they don't think that's weird. They think that's normal. No, it's not normal, it's super weird. And yes, they have enormous power in this country. And if you're saying otherwise, you're doing the opposite of journalism. You're trying to cover up facts because you're biased in favor of one particular country.
Here's the twist. Marjorie Taylor Greene actually looks reasonable here. That's how backwards CNN's framing has become. Their attempt to discredit her backfires because the facts are too solid to dismiss. Cenk sums it up perfectly. If CNN really wanted answers, they'd platform journalists who broke the story. But they won't, because the answer points in the direction they refuse to acknowledge. This entire exchange exposes media bias, Israel's influence in US politics, Epstein's intelligence connections, and the elite panic around this story. And Cenk, he steamrolls everyone here. Not even close. Cenk wins. Thank you for watching and listening to our video. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We'll talk with you in the next video.